Welcome to episode 21 of the Bach and Arthur podcast.
Yeah.
The podcast can now legally drink in America.
Yeah, 9 plus 10 episodes have we done in total. That's crazy.
Classic meme. Thank you for that.
Come on.
I would like to discuss conspiracy theories because this is a podcast and that's what podcasts are for. All
Whoa.
right? You happy with that?
I think I've been thinking we should do some conspiracy theory related podcasts, but I usually like to research. So this will be an interesting one, hearing about conspiracy theories without having done any deep dives.
Oh, I thought you were just going to insult me then, actually. I thought you were going to say, I actually like to research. So it's going to be interesting hearing it from an idiot who... But this
is illiterate. He's watched 3 TikToks on each conspiracy theory.
No,
and that's the research.
This is more. I was going to do a whole episode on just a bunch of different conspiracy theories, but I started with the conspiracy theory of alternate universes, and
which I believe in.
I've just got so much for this that it's an episode in itself.
So this whole episode is on alternate universes.
This whole episode is on alternate universes. I was doing research, originally just trying to find conspiracy theories. This is the first thing that came up. And I was thinking, okay, why do people believe in this conspiracy theory? I've found out why they believe in the conspiracy theory. I'm going to play a game with you as well,
right,
based on their evidence. And then I was obviously, because of my scientific background, I studied some of the things that link into this. And this conspiracy theory actually has some merit, and so I'm gonna explain why it has some merit. And yeah, that's why it's getting its own episode, because it's actually quite an interesting topic. It's not just the moon. We never landed on the moon,
which we did.
Well, that's what you think, dumbass. So, what is the alternate universe theory? Well, the theory states that there are parallel universes or dimensions that coexist with our own, and people believe that there are alternate versions of themselves in these universes. You said you believe this conspiracy theory.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
So I listened to a physicist a long time ago, essentially resolving Schrodinger's cat, the paradox of that, and I don't know whether now would be a good time to go into Schrodinger's cat, because it could be really interesting.
Go.
I guess we've got a lot of time. So, and have you studied quantum physics?
Yeah.
So you'll be able to nudge me in the right direction on this. But essentially, quantum particles can exist in quantum states. These superpositions of being both one thing and the other. So you've got the famous double split experiment, which you can go read more about if you want to explain it. It's hard for me to put into terms, let alone the smartest people in the world. But essentially, if you fire a photon, is photons right?
Or electrons either,
at a double slit, if they're particles, you'd expect on the other side of the double slit, you have like a sheet that's sort of where they essentially land. You'd expect sort of 2 straight lines, because, if you're firing a gun, bullets, you'd expect that. Whereas if they travel as waves, you'd expect an interference pattern, as sort of like as you would if someone was pushing waves through these 2 things. And whether it acts as a particle or a wave depends on whether you observe it. And it's the sort of not looking. It is more complicated than this, but essentially when we're not observing, these photons act as waves. So they kind of exist in both states. Mm-hmm. And with Schrodinger's cat, the idea is essentially, and I think people talk about, because I've spoken about Schrodinger's cat with people, and I think people generally tend to really not understand what exactly is going on.
Yeah.
So the idea is that you get some sort of particle that decays, and in quantum physics, without observing this particle, you can consider it existing in this quantum superposition of having both decayed and not decayed. And you can set up, and Erwin Schrodinger came up with this thought experiment to essentially, his idea behind doing it was to demonstrate how ludicrous, the current understanding of quantum physics and quantum superposition, all this kind of stuff is. And it's to get one of these particles and attach it to essentially like a box of poison. And you go, when this particle decays, it triggers this box that releases the poison, and that's going to be inside another box with a cat in it. So the second the particle decays, the poison is let out into the box and the cat dies, and then you close the lid on that. And the idea is that when that particle is existing in both the state of having decayed and not decayed, which we can prove through experiment, like is possible that these quantum superposition states can exist. Technically, the poison has broken and hasn't yet broken, and so the cat is alive and isn't alive at the exact same time. And it's only when you open the box that you have escaped from my mind, but essentially like grounding it in reality.
Right. Yeah.
And it essentially, becomes you open it up, and then in reality, you either that particle then becomes, because you've sort of observed it, the cat's either going to be dead or alive, because the particle will either have decayed or not decayed. And the physicist was essentially saying that you can resolve this idea by saying that every time there's one of these quantum events where there's a superposition and it gets entangled in reality, is that reality splits into two, like alternate universes, one where the cat's alive and one where the cat's dead.
Exactly.
And so he believes that every single time there is a quantum entanglement, which is basically pretty much non-stop several times a second in every sort of place on Earth.
Any interaction.
The universe splits and rips into two identical ones where each possible outcome essentially happens. And this isn't just a sort of like crazy conspiracy theory, is it? Sort of like a lot of the leading physicists and quantum physicists actually do believe this is true. Yeah,
that's the actual solid theory around like alternate realities, I think is a better way to put it, rather than universes. And sort of gives a merit to the conspiracy theory version, where the reason there's like a conspiracy theory version is because they base it on evidence such as like the Mandela effect and déjà vu and stuff like that, which I'll go into. And so that's why they think, oh, there's different universes and my realities are merging. But like Arthur was talking about Schrodinger's cat as an example of how it could actually be true, just not as the conspiracy theory suggests. And I think you're right. Like most people forget with Schrodinger's cat, the whole part of the particle decaying and stuff like that. They just think someone says the cat is both dead and alive. And so it can be hard to understand because it's not really, people don't really go into detail and say, there is a particle in there. If it decays and it's detected, poison is released. And so that's the side of Schrodinger's a cat that makes it make sense. But I see it online all the time for this conspiracy theory, mainly on TikTok. People talk about, they think there's alternate universes because of, like I mentioned, the Mandela effect being one of their pieces of evidence. They think the Mandela effect is an example of them maybe swapping realities into a different universe. Their consciousness has swapped into a different version of themselves, hence why they're experiencing the Mandela effect. And I wanted to go through some Mandela effect things with you.
Ooh.
And see if you remember them as they are, or you're with the masses who think it otherwise. Because some of them are really interesting, and they are like, what? That is weird.
Okay, yeah, I'm down for this.
And if anyone doesn't know what a Mandela effect is, it's basically where a large group of people believe something is a certain way, but it turns out it was never that way, or it will make sense when I give examples, but it's called the Mandela effect because a lot of people thought Nelson Mandela died when he was imprisoned in the 1980s, but he never did. He went on to be president of South Africa in 2013 and stuff. He was alive and well, but everyone thought he was dead. Here are some Mandela effects. Do you remember on the Apple emoji keyboard, a bank robber emoji? Do you remember this emoji? And we'll have an image on screen. For audio listeners, it literally looks like a bank robber with a stripy t-shirt and a loot bag. So many people remember this emoji. I feel like I vaguely remember it.
No, not really. Not this one.
But this enrages a lot of people. There's a whole like community online where they're like, this emoji existed. Apparently it never existed. I'm suspicious as to whether, because you remember when they used to have guns as emojis.
Yeah.
They got swapped out for water pistols and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I think they went on a big, like, make everything more family friendly.
Cleanse.
So I wonder if they got rid of the rubber and have just not admitted it ever existing. Or maybe
Surely
it didn't
there'll be
exist.
traces of it somewhere, though.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that one.
Okay.
But that enrages a lot of people. The next one...
They all do, by the way, don't they? Like, people get really annoyed.
Oh, yeah, they do. Now
Curious George.
did you ever watch Curious George?
No.
See, I never even watched him, but I know what he looks like.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm
now,
sure there was a tail.
I've got 2 pictures of Curious George on screen for audio listeners. One with a tail, one without. You think he had a tail?
Yeah.
Curious George never had a tail. So
What?
the tailless Curious George is the right George, and there was never a George with a tail.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
Lara, can you quickly search what ape exactly Curious George is supposed to be?
Let's get to the bottom of this.
Let's get to the bottom of whether he should have a tail. A Barbary macaque or a chimpanzee?
Oh, brother ain't no chimpanzee. That's for sure. He's a macaque. Macaque just sounds like poo.
Interesting. Can we find the lengths of their tails? Just type in Barbary macaque tail length.
This sounds like you're joking, but I know you're serious. So they have a tail,
Yeah.
but it can be tiny.
Yeah, I mean 0.4 to 2.2 centimeters.
Oh, that is tiny.
So if he is a Barbary macaque, technically the drawing's right.
But does he have a bump? I don't think he even has a bump.
Maybe. Can we get a picture of Curious George's bum?
You know, let's
So
not
you can
pull
see
that
what his
up.
tail looks from
You've already
behind.
got that on your camera roll, I'm sure. Now, this is the classic. This one enrages everyone because Mr. Monopoly Man.
This one enrages me.
Does he have a monocle? Does he not have a monocle?
I'm so sure he had a monocle at one point.
I think everyone is so sure he had a monocle at one point, but Monopoly claim he never did. And you look on every Monopoly box, he doesn't have a monocle, to be fair. So
This is one I've heard a million times, and looking at it, he looks so weird without one.
I know it doesn't look right, does it?
You know, in cartoons when they take their glasses off and their eyes are really small, and like people do it in real life. and you're like,
you
what
can
the
tell
hell?
when someone wears glasses.
I'm looking at Monopoly Man,
Yeah.
and I'm like, what the hell?
Well, that ain't right. This one is a personal one, right? I had to find this myself because I didn't see this online. I was on holiday and I'm a Pringle enjoyer.
Yeah,
okay?
didn't you lose your virginity to a Pringles can?
Yes, I lost my virginity to a Pringles can with some Heinz beans in it. And this is a classic flavor for people. I'm sure you would have seen a green Pringles can. Does that seem right to you? Sour cream and onion.
I'm sure there was a sour cream and chive one. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you see sour cream?
In fact, not even. I know there is. I remember. I know what it tastes like.
For sure. Okay, so I got a can when I was on holiday, and I was thinking, oh, there's sour cream and onion over here. Why not sour cream and chive? Because I was positive there's sour cream and chive at home. I looked it up. Sour cream and chive never existed in Pringles flavor. Only sour cream and onion. But I remember even the crisp having little like chives.
Chives,
in it.
yeah, absolutely. It was sour cream and chive.
Me and my whole family were like, what is going on here? That doesn't make any sense. I'm so sure. Even now, I don't believe this one. And this isn't like a big one that's spoken about online. I had to search this up in the moment. There was like some comment on Reddit about it. And I think people were like, yeah, I'm sure there was sour cream and chive as well. So I don't know what happened there. I don't know if Pringles are lying to us or if I would just... Do we make these things up in our head? I don't know.
This is what it feels. You know, the frustration you're feeling now.
Yeah.
That's how I feel when you gaslight me.
Okay. Right. Make this all about you. Wow. This frustration is actually the frustration I feel when I remember that women have to go through the menstrual cycle.
Oh.
Whereas you celebrate it. Now, did you ever play Pokemon?
Yeah. Not play Pokemon. I used to watch Pokemon.
Okay. Well, you'll be familiar with Pikachu.
Not a great deal.
You'll
Yeah.
be familiar with Pikachu, right?
Yep.
So what do you think of that? Is that Pikachu right?
Looks normal to me.
Guys, it's literally just a picture of Pikachu. Pikachu apparently never had black tip on his tail.
What, just all yellow?
Look, that's what it really looks like.
It looks so wrong.
His tail is all yellow,
all
apparently.
with no black tip. Because his ears have black tips.
Exactly, but I was so sure he'd had black tip. And then I was thinking, okay, maybe it was Raichu, who's the evolved version. Maybe he had a black tip. I looked it up, he didn't have a black tip either.
Yeah, what colour's your tip?
My tip's pink, but but that's not important right now. But that one really bothers me because I'm so certain Pikachu had a black tip.
Lara, can we get a hex diagram up so you can trust what pink exactly?
What color
don't
is
do
it?
that, don't do that.
You want the hex diagram of my tip? Okay.
The listeners at home are like, oh, we thought we were finally over this what colour is it period.
Now this one's fun for me because I'm curious about this. I don't have many supporters on this one. When did Walkers change the color of cheese and onion and salt and vinegar?
That looks wrong to me. I thought cheese and onion was blue.
Do you think cheese and onion was always blue?
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
But
that I definitely knew.
I've got a picture of a green Walker's bag with cheese and onion on it.
Yeah, it looks wrong. It looks so wrong.
Because I was so positive that they swapped the colours at one point, salt and vinegar and cheese and onion used to be green.
Nah.
And I still stand by that. I look online, I've got a small community that I lead. I'm their leader and we talk about this all the time. But I wonder if it's maybe hula hoops has thrown me off because hula hoops have got the opposite colour.
And the Pringles, of course.
And Pringles, yeah. But this should be the way it is. Cheese and onion should be green. It should be green.
Why? Because neither cheese nor... Actually, onions are kind of green.
Yeah, I just think it makes sense. And salt and vinegar, it's kind of like the ocean, blue.
You know, sometimes when you peel off the brown of the onion, like the tips especially,
yeah,
it
can be greenish, yeah. Looney Tunes, were you ever a fan of Looney Tunes?
Looney Tunes or Looney Tunes?
Looney Tunes.
Oh.
Yeah, so...
Looney Tunes,
is it Looney Tunes as in Toons or Tunes?
I would say UNES, Looney Tunes.
Does that look right to you?
Yeah, Looney Tunes looks wrong to me.
Well, you are actually correct.
Oh.
It is Looney Tunes as in the correct spelling, but everyone seems to think it was Looney Tunes as in 00. Now, to me, Looney Tunes does look like something I might have seen before, but I don't know well enough to be like, oh, this is the Mandela effect for me. I didn't see that often, you know. At that age, I was just scoffing down like yogurt raisins and spinning around thinking I was a Tasmanian devil.
Oh my god! Oh wow! What a guy that guy was.
Queefing, all that.
Oh,
Kit Kat, whippy! Do you like Kit Kats?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't even see the difference between
So
these two.
one is hyphenated, one is not hyphenated, as in a little dash in between the kit and the cat.
Kit dash cat.
What do you think? It's Kit dash cat or Kit Kat without the dash?
I would say no dash. The dash looks weird and makes the logo
Doesn't
look
look
empty.
right to you, and I would agree with you,
Yeah.
and we would be correct.
Oh, come
Because there is no dash. But there's a lot of people who think there was a dash at some point. They got rid of the dash, but no, there was never a dash. Don't know
on.
where people...
Unnecessary, I feel.
I feel like that might be an easy one to mistake though, because Kit Kat kind of feels like a dash could be in there.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
you might convince yourself there was a dash. So yeah, those. Oh, is there another one? Oh yeah. Did you watch
Shaggy from
Scooby-Doo?
Scooby-Doo, yeah.
Yeah. So did he have an Adam's apple or not?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. He never had an Adam's apple.
No, I don't believe that.
I was so sure he had an apple because I remember seeing the food. You know when he'd eat stackers of burgers?
Yeah, and it would gulp down.
It would go past his Adam's apple, but apparently he never had one. His neck was just so smooth and perfect, like a penis.
He's just like me for real. Oh, okay, right.
Well, no, he's nothing like you.
You ruined it.
The one with the Adam apple is more like you,
Yeah.
with a little bit of bump to it. You know what I'm
I
saying?
love how he was just high all the time,
Yeah,
Just-
yeah.
watching a kid's show, and this
That's
guy was just
Another conspiracy theory.
chomping on edibles and chilling with his massive dog that speaks, kind of,
We should go.
and no one questioned it.
See, that should rear its head in the full conspiracy theory episode because that's true. He was a stoner
Yeah,
in a kids show. I watched that so much. I love that.
great show.
But yeah, with the amount of Mandela effects out there, you can see why people would think, something ain't right here. Especially when the companies are claiming, nope, you're crazy. That never happened. But you're so sure of it, like the Pringles thing. That still plays on my mind quite a lot. So that is one main piece of evidence people often use online to say there's alternate universes. I've just swapped universe because that was not like that in my universe and stuff like that.
That's even tougher. So that's not only saying not only do other universes exist, but I'm
They've
swapping or
slipped into-
connecting
exactly.
between them.
And so I think that's the difference between the conspiracy theory version and the like scientific sort of possibility. But another piece of evidence they often use in the conspiracy theory is déjà vu, because they believe that is a slip or a sign of alternate realities interfering with their own.
So what is that? I take it they think that our consciousness kind of exists on multiple planes,
I think so,
and they're somewhat intertwined.
I think that's exactly what it is.
Wow.
Which, believe it or not, is not actually that far-fetched. And I'll get into that later, because scientifically, there is a theory, not a conspiracy theory, one that is based off, quite established theories, that something like that could be possible. Have you ever heard of quantum immortality?
Yes, I have.
So we'll speak about that later. That's quite an interesting one. And going back to déjà vu, I actually heard a guy on the train. He was speaking to his, I think, son or something. They were talking, and he was like, "You've said that before. This has happened before. Oh my God, this is just repeating right now." And I was thinking, I was literally writing about déjà vu, and it happened to the guy right next to me.
Is that a coincidence?
No,
I think not.
Because I control the world. And people use it as a piece of evidence for alternate realities. The actual reason for déjà vu, I don't think they know for sure, because there's like 50 possible explanations or something. I was looking it up. I think the main thing is that there's a delay between the way your brain registers light, sound, and the way it stores what's happening right now. And it might accidentally store something that's happening in the moment as a memory real quick. So think of it like your eyes see something at a different speed your brain sees it. So your brain's already seen it, stored it, your eyes finally register it, and then you think, whoa, that's happened before. But your brain's just stored a current moment as a memory by accident or something, which makes sense.
I think haven't we discussed déjà vu on this podcast already?
I feel like we probably have.
I don't know whether this is me experiencing déjà vu.
Oh,
but I
my
swear
God.
we've spoken about it before. Because I've told you about the blind people in a maze, right?
No, I don't know.
So in case I haven't, I think I have once or twice told things on the podcast and people have been like, I think I said something.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh, I think I've heard that before. And it was because like 10 episodes beforehand, I had already told the story. So maybe this podcast can go on forever, and roughly every 20 episodes, we just go back to what we spoke about first. I always do think that, because as well, like sometimes people, do you ever see people comment like, oh, I can't wait for them to do an episode on dreams? And I'm like, we've done it.
one.
Yeah, go check it out. So I wonder
That's
at what
true.
point we've got a completely new, you know how we were talking about like every 7 years, roughly, all your cells in your body regenerate.
Yeah.
How many episodes in before
Every 20
almost
episodes
every
we
single
repeat.
viewer is a complete new viewer that wasn't around on like a year ago. We can
my
just
God.
do the same topics over and over again.
That's a good idea.
So apologies if I have kind of told this already. But yeah, obviously with déjà vu, a lot of scientifically minded people think that your brain kind of receives the information briefly before you compute it and understand it and stuff, like your subconscious experiences it first, and then feeds it into your conscious mind. And there's a sort of overlap of like when your conscious mind experiences it, your subconscious goes, yeah, I've already experienced that. Like, you know, but there's a really cool experiment where there are some people who have if you have a specific type of brain damage that interrupts the essentially discussion, the pathway between the subconscious and the conscious in terms of vision. So you can have some people that when they're looking in front of them, they see it, the information goes into their eyes are functional, it goes into the subconscious part of their brain, that's all functional, but then it just doesn't get communicated to the conscious part of their brain. So they can put them in chairs, get them to face forward, they're blind as far as they're consciously aware, so they're like, I'm not seeing anything different now to usual, and they can show them photos of a happy face and they will feel happy and not necessarily know why, and see something scary and not necessarily know why. And they've even found that some people with those types of conditions can navigate through a maze without even seeing. So they're not quite aware of why, but their subconscious is essentially aware that there's an object and that they'll need to go around it, and they'll sort of maneuver around objects and stuff without consciously knowing why. And it is mind blowing.
Oh my God.
And there are loads of really cool experiments actually to do with this. I think I spoke about it on, I think it was the Low IQ pod, actually. I think I must be mistaking you for them. But yeah, really interesting.
That is really interesting.
Yeah.
They could just navigate their way through a maze just because their subconscious is like, there's something there, you go this way now.
Yeah, feeding in and you're...
It's scary how much your subconscious really is in control of yourself.
Yeah.
Like if you think about, even me, I said this actually, I was filming a YouTube video last night and I spoke about this at the end. I don't know why. I watched a YouTube video on the subconscious. It was so interesting because it basically said, you do nothing. Your consciousness is not for doing anything, because your subconscious takes care of everything. I drove here subconsciously. I didn't know how I drove
That's
here.
terrifying. Remind me never to drive with you again.
And I know, because I was on my phone the whole time. But no, the things that just come natural to you is just your subconscious is taking control. Even you hearing my words right now, you're not hanging on to every single word, translating in your head, thinking, okay, that's what that word means.
Yeah.
You're just taking it all. Your subconscious is taking in all the words and making sense of it for you. So you can reply like that. Like, there's no conscious thought to a whole sentence or a whole spiel being like read off to you. If that makes sense.
It's true, because obviously I've got very young sisters. Like, the youngest one is now 8, and you know, it was only like 7 odd years ago. Which actually, time's flying, but like when she was like such a small baby that she didn't speak and stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember being with my older siblings and just being like, how funny is it that like she doesn't have an English dialogue in her brain at all.
Yeah.
Or any kind of language to be like, oh, I'm hungry, therefore I should get food. It's just a thought that happens without that sort of train of dialogue.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, but it's the
It
same
is.
sort of thing, I guess. So much of the time we actually do entirely act like that.
Yeah. It's just all off, like, it's not like impulse, but it's like your subconscious knows what it just does everything for you, in a sense. Yeah. Even walking, you don't have to consciously think about every step you take or anything like that. It's just all controlled by your subconscious.
You know what's annoying though? Have you ever had those people like reminding you, and they're like, you're now consciously breathing. Your tongue is. You're aware of your tongue in your
doesn't
mouth.
fit your mouth, and
You're
I
aware.
hate that.
You're aware of your clothes now touching your skin.
yeah.
And you just sort of read this little paragraph, and all of a sudden you're just sat there like, I'm so conscious right now.
I can feel my bones.
I'm conscious against my will.
Yeah, I'm clawing at the walls.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I hate the fact you mentioned the tongue one. I had a whole thing where I don't know what side of TikTok I ended up on, but every time I'd scroll, like every eight things, it would be like, your tongue doesn't fit in your mouth, by the way. I'm like, what do you mean? My tongue doesn't fit in my mouth properly. And then I'd be thinking, oh, where am I placing it? Like when you're just sat there, yours definitely doesn't.
Yeah, I got a big
That's
tongue.
a problem.
It's not a problem.
It is.
Depends
I
who
think
you
it's
are.
swollen because I was eating a Snickers bar in front of you earlier. That's why.
You know what, as well, is a real big problem for us, being conscious of the fact that our eyes usually block out our nose.
Oh my God, yeah.
Now all of a sudden you can see it again.
Oh yeah. Well, I can't miss mine. Mine never quite blocks mine out. I can
But
always
like
see the
mentally,
peak.
you're like, your brain fills it in. Like, up until now, I've just been seeing you as a clear vision.
Yeah.
And now I'm
Now
aware
there's a
that
little
I've
bit
got
of
a
a
little bit of a
blur.
hologrammy nose in between. This big
They're
old
almost
thing.
touching in the middle. I didn't even
Yeah.
notice. When I look at you, I actually just brush your forehead.
Batch's
like
mum,
that.
by the way, when she was a kid, used to be like, got your nose, but rather than having her thumb, it would be her whole knee. It was such a big, got your nose.
No, when she played that game with me, she'd have to
Lara's laughing loads off camera. That's so mean. His nose isn't that big, Lara.
Actually, she couldn't play that game herself. She'd have to do it with all her friends because they couldn't all hold my nose. It was too big. They were all there like, we've got your nose, we got your nose. 3 strong lads just pulling at it. But that's just an insight into how sad my childhood was.
Yep.
Anyway, another piece of evidence people use for the alternate universe conspiracy theory is that ghosts and seeing ghosts may just be a sign of the alternate universes interacting.
Ooh.
So maybe they don't believe in ghosts. They think it's people from alternate realities that, the realities have slipped and I can see into the other one. Interesting.
If you like Ghost Talk, we've done an episode on ghosts as well. Before we get a comment,
Yeah.
please do an episode on ghosts. We've done it.
Yeah. Anything you like, we've already done it. We've got,
We're almost out of episodes. We're almost
we're coming to our
Podcast-
retirement.
Podcast is almost over.
What do you think of that then? The idea that ghosts could be, but we don't, the thing is we don't believe in ghosts, right?
Not really, but obviously we're not complete. We don't essentially really deny anything unless it's been proven not to exist.
Yeah, I'm not ruling it out. I'm
Yeah.
ruling out it being probably, I'm saying it's probably not a dead person.
Yeah. I mean, this is the whole difficulty. This is why I think like the science, like we obviously love science, but like there is only so far that science can go. So with things like the supernatural, the point is that you can't prove it through like the scientific method. Like Like to be even worse, like obviously it's a big thing in history. I mean, that, you know, going back to like topics of religion, like there's no scientific method we could ever have to go back and verify whether Jesus walked on water or, you know, cured the sick or, you know, or there was actually a resurrection. But, you know, you can have sort of historical sources and you can bring them together. With this kind of stuff, there is no way of accessing a parallel universe because it's just outside of the scope of our current presentation of space-time. And in the exact same way as like what happened before the Big Bang Theory, like we don't even know whether it exists, let alone whether we're able to ever have any kind of experiment. So you can sit here all the time and be like, oh, this could be evidence, maybe this could be, but it's so frustrating because like our scientific brains just get so frustrated being like, okay, if that is a hypothesis that ghosts are parallel universes just slightly overlapping or interacting with ours, there's no scientific test that you could set up to prove it right or wrong.
Yeah.
It's one where you've kind of got to almost mentally accept yourself that it's just fun to discuss.
Yeah, you never
without
know.
necessarily knowing the answer.
But there's a beauty in not knowing the answer.
You know what? I actually read a really interesting quote. Let me really quickly put it up on the way here that I really, really liked. And it's sort of along a very similar vein. It's literally the only thing I wrote down for this episode because obviously you're preparing it all. But we speak about the mysteries of life and stuff and about solving problems that can probably never be solved, like life after death, pre-Big Bang, what happens after we die, that kind of stuff. And I saw this quote and it was, "The mystery of life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced."
I like that.
You ever heard that before?
No, I haven't.
Really liked it. And it was like, rather than sitting there just puzzling over things that you could puzzle over,
Yeah.
you know, until you get mad, just being like, oh, these mysteries aren't there to be solved. They're there to just be experienced, as we are doing on this podcast.
I like that. It's, I think a lot of scientists have that outlook when they're asked, oh, what's the meaning of life? Brian Cox in particular says that. He's like, I don't know if there is a meaning in life more than to just experience what you're experiencing and do what you love, and because that's all you can do. I mean, you could try and find the meaning of life, but the reality is you won't find it. So why not just experience what you can experience?
Yeah, so true.
But the conspiracy theory of alternate universes may seem crazy, may seem far-fetched. The truth is, not really. And I'll tell you why.
Tell me why. Tell me why.
Because I think we've spoken about this before. I think you've spoken about the multiverse hypothesis. I feel like we've spoken about it in a podcast, and we're at that point now where it's time to recycle. So we're doing episode 2 again. But the multiverse hypothesis, I mean, there's different veins to it. The 3 main ones
Very
being...
veiny. A veiny...
I hate when you say vein.
Sorry.
I think it's okay when I say it. Whenever you say vein, I always picture a dick. And that's a no fault of my own.
You said the words many vein. What do you think I was going to say?
Just let me say it. I didn't know that you were going to go on like that.
Sorry.
It just spit intimate, especially now that we're
I think
sharing
we've got
a
a particularly veiny universe.
Would you mean that? To be honest, if you look out at the universe, it is kind of veiny. True. And girthy as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, the multiverse hypothesis, one of them being the cosmological multiverse. This is based on the idea of cosmic inflation, which suggests that different regions of space could stop inflating at different times, leading to the formation of distinct bubble universes within a larger multiverse. This is kind of like just galaxy formation, in the sense of like after the Big Bang, there was an inflation period, and little pockets of space slowed down in inflation, and mass would be, would collapse into stars, and you get galaxies and stuff like that. But the idea is that's on a cosmological scale, and you've got universes doing that. And so you've got multiple universes. So it's not just ours that condensed where it did. Others do as well, So it's kind of, and it's not a crazy theory, because I mean, you see it on a smaller scale. Like you see it happening with universes, and then you see it happening with galaxies, and you see it happening with galaxy groups, and then you see it, it goes on and on and on. So it's not far-fetched to think there could be more than one universe, and that's what happened, cosmic inflation. Then you've got string theory multiverse, which suggests the existence of multiple dimensions beyond the familiar 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time. Different configurations of these extra dimensions could give rise to different universes with different physical properties. That's interesting. The idea that they would have different physical properties as well.
Yeah.
I assume they mean they'd also have different laws of physics, which would be crazy to even think of that. Because everywhere you look in the universe now, they all follow the same laws of physics. So the idea that there could be another universe with a different laws of physics, perhaps, is interesting.
That is so interesting. And that would be one of the cooler ones to observe because, again, tying in with sort of religion, the fine-tuning argument is one that actually both sides tend to employ a lot. You get religious people saying that the universe is fine-tuned, all these constants, life was only able to form and exist because these constants are the way they are. And if they were slightly different, there'd be different conditions, and who knows, maybe the universe wouldn't have ever been able to inflate in the first place, or it would have inflated way too fast and everything would have been too spaced out to come together to form stars and stellar nucleosynthesis to produce everything we're made up of now and all this kind of stuff. But then you also get non-religious people saying if God was truly had unlimited power and could do whatever he wanted, he wouldn't need the constants to be so specific because, they're his rules. He can make life exist without them and all that kind of stuff. And so it'd be really interesting to know if another universe could exist with different constants.
That would be crazy.
And what life would look like if life could exist.
Yeah. I mean, it's nuts.
Really interesting.
I mean, the other argument is that obviously everything was perfect to produce life. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here to even talk about it.
Yeah.
And discuss the fact that the conditions were perfect. So that's this, like, I guess a scientific outlook is like, well, if things weren't perfect, you wouldn't be talking about it anyway.
And was it on this podcast that we spoke about the Douglas Adams puddle?
I don't think so. I don't think you've ever spoken to me about your puddle.
he spoke about this sort of like, imagine a puddle like in a little divot in the ground.
Yeah.
Looking around and just going, wow, what are the chances that this hole in the ground is so perfectly shaped that I fit perfectly in it?
Right.
And as the sun rises and the day gets hotter and he starts evaporating away, he begins panicking, but he's reassuring himself, no, I fit this so perfectly. I was meant to be here. And it almost catches him by surprise when he fully evaporates and it completely dries up because he was so preoccupied with this idea that he was meant to be there and that everything was perfect.
Yeah.
But it just so happened that, as we know, the hole formed and the puddle was what filled it. And that's the same with us. Like, you have all these conditions around the universe.
Yeah.
And we're just in one where, there's a hole for a puddle and there's the right conditions. And just because we filled it doesn't mean that, we necessarily were meant to be here or that the universe would care if we ceased to be here.
And we know full well, I mean, that the sun is going to expand to a point which kills us all anyway. So is it really perfect? Sun's going to almost engulf Earth. I don't think that's perfect. We're getting sloppy toppy from the sun. Unbelievable.
Only sloppy toppy you're ever getting.
Whatever. Well, we'll see after this podcast. So that was the string theory multiverse hypothesis. There's also
which famously ends with talking about sloppy toppy from the sun.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Brian Cox told that even better than
Brian
we
Cox
did.
ain't never coming on here now. And then you've got
Can you imagine Brian Cox sees it in the title about all the science stuff and he's like, you know what, I might come on this podcast. They're talking about string theory, quantum immortality, all this kind of stuff. And he just clicks to the one bit in the podcast.
It's the most replayed part. That's why he goes to that. We're talking about rose toys and shit.
and he's like, they're talking about giving each other the sun.
Sloppy toppy, yeah.
Brian, we're sorry. Please come on and talk to us about the universe and the mysteries of it.
We're pairing comedy with science here. It's good for the younger generations.
A strenuous use of the word comedy.
Yeah. Speaking of strenuous. Anyway, not.
I thought you were going to come in with a really cool segue.
No, I was going to be really disgusting, but then I thought I best not, because also I saw that you're almost half naked again. I thought it was getting too intimate.
Shorts.
Anyway, so then there's the quantum approach, Now, this is the interesting one. And this is why this made a whole podcast episode, because I was going to go on to other conspiracy theories, but then I was like, oh my God, this is just rich. This is rich with topic. Because also I studied part of this in my quantum physics module. So some of this I remember, but I had to refresh my memory because it is a very complicated topic. So I'm going to try and put it in ways that is like really digestible. So the quantum multiverse stems from the many worlds interpretation, which I think is sort of what you were alluding to with the Schrodinger's cat conversation. Because this theory posits that every quantum event spawns a new separate universe. I think it's better to say separate reality, leading to a potentially infinite number of parallel universes where different outcomes or events occur. And now, it left it there, but I want to go into more detail on that.
Yeah, that is I think exactly what I was talking about.
That is what you were talking about. It's the most interesting case because it really does explore the possibility of there being multiple different realities where different versions of you exist. There's different versions of the Bach and Arthur podcast.
Yeah.
And on one of them, we each have a rose toy up our ass. And we're not talking about science. So,
spoiler, it's this one.
So the many worlds interpretation suggests...
This is a real mix.
Scientifically.
It's a serious mix of topics.
Because I'm going straight onto this after that.
Who is this appealing to?
No, they're going to love this. They're going to love this. Okay. So the many worlds interpretation.
Yes, the quantum rose toy.
Oh my God.
It's both vibrating and not vibrating at the exact same time.
Electrons would love that. They need something like that.
They're a bit too excited already, I feel.
Exactly, but they're the ones, they always have to be upbeat and excited. Yeah. Maybe they want a quantum rose toy up their ass. We'll see if we can do that at CERN, I'm sure. So the many worlds interpretation suggests that the wave function, which, by the way, you don't need to know what the wave function is, you just need to know that it describes quantum probabilities, okay? And this interpretation, the many worlds interpretation, suggests that the wave function never collapses and instead every possible outcome happens. So after anything happens, basically, the reality you move into, the wave function will collapse and you're in that reality. So any event, whatever happens, I pick this up. The wave function collapsed, I picked this up. There's not a case where I didn't pick this up because the wave function collapsed. This theory suggests the wave function never collapses. It instead branches out into different realities. So when I'm about to pick this up, the wave function didn't collapse and I just picked this up. The wave function branched out into different realities. There's a reality where I didn't pick that up and that continues to live. And there's a reality where I threw this across the room and that continues to live. There's a reality where I drink all of that and that continues to live.
Yes, I think as well, just because these are, I guess, slightly new terms in this podcast episode, but it's exactly what I was describing earlier when we were talking about that particle that has decayed or hasn't decayed.
Yeah.
Like whether it has decayed at any one point in time exists as on this probability wave function.
Yeah.
And when you open that box and you entangle it with your reality and see, has it decayed or has it not? The probability is there, but it either has or hasn't. And that's what he means by like it collapsing.
Yeah.
It's sort of entangling with reality in that sense.
Yeah, it will collapse and that happens.
And so opening that box, this is almost exactly what I was saying, like opening the box, like there's this wave of probability of whether it has or hasn't decayed at any one time, but you can open the box and rather than it collapsing and being like, yes, decayed, therefore cat dead, or no, it hasn't decayed, cat alive, it actually just splits into every single one of these probabilities.
Yeah.
Where there's no collapse in it, either has or hasn't. It's there's all these different, it rips into these multiple universes that are all parallel, but the cat is alive or isn't alive. And
exactly.
Yeah, it's the exact same. It is the exact same thing.
It's the same thing.
That's so interesting.
When an observer observes something, they split into versions that experience every possible result. Remember, this is a theory. This is not like fact. We're saying this is exactly what happens.
Yeah.
But the idea is that the observer splits itself amongst, everything is just split amongst different realities. And obviously you're only experiencing one of those. So you would have no idea that it branches off and there's different realities out
Yeah.
there.
Like just before you open the box,
Yeah.
you're one, and then you open the box and you split into two, and you're going, oh, it's dead.
Yeah.
But there's literally just in another perfect parallel universe of you going, oh, it's alive.
Alive, exactly.
And it's so bizarre.
And although so daily life might seem random to you, because for instance, opening that box might seem random. It could be alive, it could be dead. The overall theory states that it's actually deterministic because everything happens. So there's no random side to anything.
Everything happens. I like that.
Everything happens. Everything that can happen does happen, which we've spoken about before.
Yeah.
Is a belief we have anyway. And then it gets interesting to look into a theory called quantum immortality, which stems from the many worlds interpretation, because this is
like
really
this one.
Interesting. Now
I find it interesting, but I think it's bollocks.
I mean, yeah, this one. So this is more. It feels more conspiracy than like.
Actually, you know what? I think maybe we don't judge a direction before the viewer has.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's let the listener hear what it is and come to their own thing rather than
quantum immortality. So like we said, every quantum event results in branching of the universe into multitude of parallel realities. Parallel.
There's a universe in which everything's the same, but Bach said that normally.
Yeah, exactly. Why couldn't I be in that one?
Lara, can we turn his rose toy vibration down, please?
Turn it down,
it's distracting him a little bit.
I've gone numb, actually. Turn it up. I've gone numb. I can't feel it. So each one of those realities represents a different outcome of event. Quantum immortality focuses on a conscious observer. So it focuses on you, if you're the observer of an event happening. Whenever an event occurs that could result in an observer's death, there are branches of the universe where the observer dies and branches where they survive. The theory suggests that your consciousness follows the branch that survives, so you never experience your own death. So although you might be thinking now, but I've seen, relatives or friends die before my very eyes. I know death is real, it happens. But for them, they never experienced their death, according to this theory, because their consciousness followed a branch in reality where they never died. And that's basically quantum immortality.
Yeah.
And this is up to you whether you believe this or not. Obviously, you can do more research into it and whatnot. But this one's difficult because it's not as scientific, because it relies on the fact that consciousness can decide where it goes, consciousness can decide which reality it chooses, which is an idea that is it's a little more far-fetched than just the regular many worlds interpretation. The idea that the wave function doesn't collapse and everything happens.
Yeah.
And you're just in one of those, and maybe it's random which one you're in. One of those
but
realities.
I mean, technically, if every single time there's a possibility that something could go one of many ways, then, every single time, let's say you die in a car crash, that you could have just waited an extra second before pulling out, and you could have, there may very well be a universe where, you did delay and then you survived, and then that conscious continues to experience,
I guess,
life. So maybe, I wonder, because it's difficult as well, whether you see consciousness as more than just, chemistry and physics and biology interacting just in your brain.
Exactly.
Which I think we do, because then there isn't, when let's say, for example, we accept the hypothesis that the universe splits in two. Let's say we just have Schrodinger's cat box in front of us and we lift it up. From the way I understand consciousness, I can't see, let's say I open the box and the cat's alive. I can't see any way in which my current state of consciousness would in any way interact with the other state of consciousness. So if I open the box and I see it as alive and then I go get hit by a car, I don't think I enjoy the consciousness in the parallel universe that opens it. It's alive and doesn't get hit by a car. But that consciousness just, because you can only experience life. So that other consciousness may go on, and that might be my consciousness because it's, has the exact same roots as me. But I think my consciousness, as I know it and I'm aware of it, does come to an end.
Exactly. I think that's it.
It just does suck.
It's just the idea of like, is your consciousness one with all the versions of yourself, or is it individual to you? Because if it's individual to you, then the idea that your conscious, I think the idea of quantum immortality is like, so your consciousness, like you now, exactly how you are, who you are, you don't experience your own death because you don't know it's happening, but every time you come close to death, you have changed, you've gone into, your consciousness has followed a different reality. And I mean, the thing is, you'll never know unless you ever experience your own death.
Yeah.
I think that's the only way to ever know. But then do you ever even experience your own death?
Yeah, probably not. You know, this is funny because my little siblings, we were talking about, a lot of my younger siblings now listen to the podcast, which is a bit worrying for some. They really,
all the rose toys.
They really enjoy it. And we were just speaking about like life after death, that kind of stuff. Like, you know, what do you believe happens? Like, you know, God and life after death and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they were saying like, I can't imagine something not happening after death because like they can't fathom what it would be like to no longer exist. And I just did the classic, like, what was it like when I was a child and you weren't born yet? And they were like, don't know. And it could literally just be that.
Yeah.
And it is so weird. Like when the T-Rex was roaming around, what was it like for you?
Yeah.
Like
it was lit for me because I was there. But you were nothing yet.
Yeah, I was nothing.
Don't forget, I'm a demigod.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm a demigod. You don't just be this veiny for no reason.
Oh, fucking God.
No, but that is an interesting thought because
Yeah.
a human can't really comprehend nothing because all you've ever experienced is something.
I think that's why almost so much of this can come back to terror management theory. Like the idea that we come up with these theories that our consciousness lives on, whether it's through religion and an afterlife or reincarnation or quantum immortality, where a scientist is sitting there going, no, you know, it's not possible to be conscious.
I can't die.
After death, so you can only ever be consciously aware of life. So there must be a quantum immortality. Like a part of me, whenever I hear anything like this, just does think this is just a cope for
the fact that we're
the inevitability that we're going to die. Even when we talk about it, when we go, we don't think we're ever going to die.
No.
Like, although I think that's a high possibility, but there's every chance that I could just get like killed on the way home today.
Yeah.
And there's nothing, it's pretty scary.
Yeah. And if you keep getting on my nerves, you will.
Oh my goodness. All right.
So, but what if I told you these people have created an alternate universe conspiracy theory, right? With the idea that there's alternate versions of them out there. What if I told you you don't need alternate universes to have alternate versions of yourself out there, and you don't need a conspiracy theory for it?
What do you mean?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. Well, this will be a debate on the infinity of the universe.
Okay.
That's right, exploring infinity. Because in an infinite universe, there is no need for another universe to have an alternate version of yourself. More than one version of you will exist in an infinite universe. So this really comes down to whether you believe the universe is infinite or not. Mainly, I mean, there's evidence for the universe being infinite, but not proof, if that makes sense. So there's things that could point to suggest, oh, maybe the universe is infinite. The truth is we don't know whether it's infinite or finite, but we can only see up to the observable universe. We assume beyond that, and you can only see so far because it's only been like 13.8 billion years since the Big Bang. Light's only traveled so
Bro
far.
said only.
Yeah, fucking come on, get on with it. Light's only traveled so far, so we can only see as far as light has traveled. But we assume the rest of the universe will look like what we see in the observable universe. But there are theories that the universe is infinite. One of the main pieces of evidence for this is the fact of how flat the universe is. Now, what this means is if you look at it as a whole, the universe, even just the observable universe as a whole, it has zero curvature. And think of it like the Earth. You look over the Earth's horizon, you can't see the Earth's curvature because it's so big. I mean, you can see that it dips. You know there is a curve, but if something is big enough, it looks flat because you don't see the curve. But we can see from the observable universe and measure that, the curvature of space. And to put it in a way for people to be able to picture it, the geometry of space that is flat is such that parallel lines will remain parallel and the corners of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So that's basically the state of our universe. This just means that there are other versions. So you can have an open universe, which is, it would be shaped more like a saddle, which means it has negative curvature. Negative.
Negative curvature.
You got negative curvature. Yeah, its curvature will be
that
negative.
sounds so embarrassing. It sounds like a negative thing.
And you could have a closed universe which has positive curvature, and it's like the surface of a sphere. So you can imagine it like the surface of like Earth. Okay, Earth is closed. Universe would be infinite and flat. You can have a flat universe that is finite though. So that is a little caveat there. And we can observe this with the cosmic microwave background radiation. You can measure it with temperature fluctuations, the curvature of the universe. So we know from our measurements that it is flat. This basically just means that there is no curvature to the universe. So it points to the idea that the universe is infinitely large, because a finite universe would have to be huge to see no curvature. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm trying to put it in a way that makes sense, but I feel like there's a lot of talking about curvature and non-curvature. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think obviously because space-time does curve because of gravity. Like when we speak about gravity, we speak about that as curvature of space-time.
Yeah.
When you mean flat universe, you don't mean space-time not curving.
So no, it's the actual, it is like the spatial universe is not curved if you look at it as a whole. And it's the same with anything. You look at Earth as a whole, it looks like a sphere, but if you go down to look at Earth on your feet, you'll see it has mountains. It's not a perfect sphere. You look at the universe individually, look at it in a solar system, you can see the curvature when just the sun even being there creates curvature in space-time. But if you look at the universe in a whole, it's flat. And it's not something that really needs to be understood. It's just the fact that the universe is flat points us to think that it could be infinite.
And if it's infinite, it's kind of like the infinite number of typewriters. One of them would eventually write Shakespeare.
Exactly.
Sort of thing where there will be a Botch and Arthur podcast somewhere.
Exactly.
Where everything is the exact same.
Yeah.
But you're called Italian Botch.
Yeah, which would be nice.
Yeah.
So
and your rose toy is green.
That's the thing. In an infinite universe,
not a luscious red.
How do you know what color it is? It's always in. Every single possibility will be repeated in an infinite universe. So there will be alternate versions of yourself. And if this universe is infinite, then they're already knocking about. And
wow.
There's just unlimited possibilities.
But there's only one you, and you're the best version of yourself.
Yeah, and that then ties into the fact like your consciousness is then only in you. So what consciousness is in the other versions of you? Is it you? I don't know. I don't know about that. And an interesting thing comes out of infinity, but this is more about temporal infinity.
Go on.
Okay, so we're talking about spatial infinity there and how you'd have alternate versions of yourself. This is talking about over infinite time. Have you ever heard of the Boltzmann brain?
No, what's that?
So it's interesting. Over infinite time, this is, okay. A Boltzmann brain is a theoretical concept where a fully formed, self-aware brain spontaneously appears in space due to random fluctuations.
Okay.
So just the idea that a brain can just pop into space due to random fluctuations is nuts, but over infinite time it would happen.
Okay, yeah.
This idea stems from the laws of thermodynamics, suggesting that over infinite time, even extremely improbable events can occur. The concept raises philosophical questions about the nature of our existence and reality, suggesting that if the universe is vast and eternal, it might be more likely that we are such spontaneously formed entities rather than being evolved naturally. So it opens the door to the idea that we didn't form through like evolution and all of this, or maybe it did, but it was spontaneous.
Interesting.
So
one of the steps where we go, inorganic material to single cells, blah, blah, blah.
It could apply to any step.
It could apply to any step. I mean,
that's why
this
it's interesting.
borders on last Thursdayism, doesn't it?
What
because
is that?
Technically, so there's no way for you to prove that everything didn't spontaneously come into existence last Thursday.
Right.
Like even now, right? Okay, so you're sat at home going, I know I've been watching this podcast for the last hour and a half. There's no way for you to know that. There's no way for you to demonstrate or know for sure that the entire universe and everything the way it is now, like let's even just put this in simple terms, and which is possible, is that this is a simulation and someone could have coded this universe, okay, on a very, very advanced computer, but it may very well be possible. And there's no way for you to know that simulation didn't start 5 minutes ago. And every memory you have of everything that's ever happened and everything that you think has happened this morning and last night and stuff are just memory. I mean, all memories are is just a certain arrangement of particles and space inside your brain. Like that there's every chance that someone could, code a universe and code your consciousness to just believe that you've experienced all these stuff, but you actually haven't.
Yeah.
And there's no way of knowing it.
That's why it's so interesting. Infinity to me is such an interesting topic because it breeds all these possibilities.
And this comes back to one of the earliest things we spoke about in this podcast, again, just to revisit another thing, is Descartes' I think, therefore I am. Like it is the only thing you can know is that you exist as a conscious entity because you're thinking. But there's no way for you to know whether you're a brain in a vat, whether we're in a simulation, whether anything is real. Like you can't actually prove anything.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it is true.
But then I think people get carried away with that idea and then go into, again, well, technically there's no belief that's unreasonable, like why not believe that T-Rex existed yesterday and were our gods and stuff and all that kind of stuff, because you can't prove that they're not. But belief almost then has to be grounded in, reasonable foundations, and everything you believe has to get, because you might go, oh, well, I don't even know that my exam is going to happen tomorrow. That the universe could explode or the simulation could end. But you've got to be reasonable and be like, well, I think it's pretty safe to assume that it will. So it's probably best to revise.
Yeah, I would revise if I were you.
But pretty weird, pretty crazy.
It is crazy. And these are the sort of thoughts that keep me up at night.
Yeah. Well, you say that, you don't even know that you've ever been kept up at night. The simulation could have started 5 minutes ago.
No, I know, because when I had a sleepover with you, all I could hear was vibrating in your room. That kept
right, whoever made the simulation, can you delete that memory from his head, please?
And I didn't just spontaneously pop here with that memory in. Can I just say that?
You spontaneously popped that night, I'm telling you.
Anyway, on that note, I think that's a good way to end it. We'll spontaneously end this podcast.
Out of absolutely nowhere. Thanks for watching. Make sure to rate us 5 stars on all the podcast platforms.
Yeah.
Keep us growing and really appreciate it all.
Like, comment, subscribe, and comment a spontaneous emoji. It could be anything.
Ooh, drop a galaxy emoji if you've made it to the end of the podcast. Whoa. Any kind of galaxy.
Any kind, we don't care. Spiral, elliptical, irregular.
Yeah. And of course, check out the Patreon because we've had our first exclusive video drop, as we've already said, and there's plenty more coming.
That sounded like porn.
What?
Just the way you said it. We've had our first exclusive video drop.
Spontaneous end. Bye.